Where's the slides, lady? Good afternoon and welcome to Forgiveness Live for August 12, 2023. My name is Megan Saunders. I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today and to share with you the information from our very special guest, Dr. Joe Arney. This is a monthly program that we offer from Forgive for Health Ministries here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Welcome. I'd like to start by quickly sharing the topic for today, which is going to be money, financial stress, and forgiveness. Button your seatbelts, it's going to be an interesting ride. I'd like to start with a few quick Zoom housekeeping tips for those who might be joining us on Zoom. Please share your name and where you're calling from in the chat. Mute your lines to reduce distractions, and place any questions you might have in the chat box. The meeting is being recorded. Your participation is considered consent to be recorded, included in these recordings. And we have put a forgiveness assessment in the chat. So if you have not done one before, please take a minute to complete the assessment. If you run into any problems while we are running this live, just send me a message at forgiveforhealth@gmail.com, and we will try our best to help you. I'd like to go next to talking about our meeting purpose. We do this monthly to discuss relevant forgiveness-related topics with people with lived experience, or SMEs, or subject matter experts. We hope to provide tools and resources to help our listeners successfully navigate the issues that we talk about in their own lives. But before I start, I wanted to give you a brief overview of our ministry so you know what we're about and why you need to listen to what we're offering today. Overarching, over everything we do is the thread of forgiveness. In fact, I'll maybe say it another way, woven through everything we do is the thread of forgiveness. And I'd like to define that first before we jump into the session today. Forgiveness is the act of deliberately giving up resentment towards an offender while fostering this undeserved quality of beneficence or goodwill and compassion towards the person. We use this as a definition for our ministry, and it's important because there are different definitions of forgiveness, but this is one we've chosen to use. It was developed in 1996, so it's been around for a long time, and we believe it applies to what we do here. We wanted to next share with you the vision, mission, and goals of Forgive for Health Ministries. Our value statement, as you see on the screen, is healing all relationships are good. We know that many relationships are severed or broken because of unforgiveness, and we come alongside people to help them to heal their relationships for good. So whether it's a divorce or a mother-daughter or a workplace issue, we help you to heal those relationships. Our vision is to have people living free of unforgiveness and all its consequences, because we know that unforgiveness is like carrying water on your back and being overburdened when you think you're hurting somebody else, when you're really hurting yourself. And our mission statement is helping people grow and thrive with a forgiving heart. We have a few program goals I'd like to run through quickly before we get to our guest speaker today. Our hope is to encourage and advocate for healthcare providers to assess forgiveness levels of all patients and to refer them to caring professionals or ministries such as ours. We know that many people come into the health system with lots of problems that are really tied to unforgiveness. And instead of really getting to the root of the problem, we over-medicinize them. We want to help all individuals to forgive so they can live free, as I've said earlier, from the shackles of unforgiveness, because this really weighs you down. And we work to implement a trauma-informed approach or care for African Americans and other minorities so they can thrive. And we work to build awareness and evidence base for addressing religion as a social determinant of health. And last but not least, we serve as a bridge between faith communities and public health to improve population health. A little bit more about the ministry. We are a 501c3 designated Christian-based organization here in Stone Mountain, Georgia, but we have a global footprint. We are led by a diverse board of directors and a pastoral lead. And this really was started several years ago, but 10 years ago, by the stirring of the Holy Spirit. After I completed my doctoral degree on forgiveness and looked at its impact on the health of African-American divorcees. We work in the clinic, religious, and community setting to really thread forgiveness and assessment and facilitation into the fabric of all we do. We offer on-ground and virtual programs, and you can visit our website at forgiveforhealth.org for more information. Just a little sprinkling of what we do, some of what we do. Each Friday night at 7:30, we run an RT and forgiveness program virtually for adults. We have an RT and forgiveness juniors on Saturday morning for children under 14 years of age. We have an annual conference, which comes up next month on the 16th of September. And we do have a World Day of Peace celebration every September 21st to celebrate World Day of Peace. We also offer RT and DEIA-B, which focuses on the workplace and unforgiveness issues and other topics related to DEIA-B, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the workplace. We offer the Forgiveness Live program that you're listening in today. And we do offer forgiveness at work boot camp. So if you're in a workplace, whether it's a mom and pop store or you have a very large organization, we'd love to come to you to offer forgiveness at work boot camp. We know from the data that unforgiveness in the workplace affects morale, productivity, and even sick days that your employees will take. We also offer RT and forgiveness facilitators training for those who want to actually implement that program in their part of the world. And we do have an RT diabetes and chronic disease where we help people with this model to manage their chronic conditions. So I have run through that very quickly because I didn't want to take much more time, because the crux of what we're trying to talk about today is the issue of money and financial stress and forgiveness. And I have a wonderful guest that I have looked across the country and the world and found. And I'd like to stop to introduce them. But even before that, I wanted to sort of tee this up with some data. I think it's no surprise to any of us listening today that we are a nation with money problems. Many of us are stressed financially. And I went to the literature and to the internet and found some data that I wanted to start to share before I brought on Dr. Ani. Just look at the screen. More than 68% of Americans report that their financial status did not improve or it remained the same in 2022. Now, you might not remember, but 2022 we're in the middle of the pandemic, right? We also have 40% of these people that reported to the study saying that they made the most significant financial mistake they made in 2022 was not saving enough money. Most of us don't save enough money, it seems. 35% of people reported falling into bad habits in 2022. Now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and they're reporting that they were not sticking to a budget. They were overpaying for rent. They lost money in the stock market and on crypto, and they were not contributing to their retirement savings. The average savings in 2022 went down by 15% to about $62,000. But I think all of us know people who don't even have $1,000 in saving. And then I think the topic of the hour right now is the student loan forgiveness issue. And I really wanted to share this data because all of us know somebody with student loan. 45 million Americans hold over 1.75 trillion, with a T, guys, dollars in student loan. And the average loan is about $37,000. As you know, we've been back and forth about whether this is going to be forgiven or what people are going to be doing with this, but people are burdened with student loan in this country. A few more things I'd like to share is that most Americans, about 65%, report that money was a significant source of stress for them, right? And this is the highest level ever recorded since 2015. 82% of Americans aged 18 to 25 considered money a major stressor. Nearly 2/3 of American adults live paycheck to paycheck, guys. If something happens, they can't meet their bills. 36% of people who earned $250,000 or more reported still living from paycheck to paycheck. That to me is alarming if you make so much money. 22% of people who live paycheck to paycheck struggle to pay their monthly bill. And last but not least, our Gen Xers have about $7,155,000 in credit card balances. We are stewed and overwhelmed with money. And so the topic is not only timely, but very relevant for all of us. And so we would love right now to introduce our expert, Dr. Joe Ani, who has an MBA. He's a minister. He's a financial guru. He's a dad, a business owner, and a mentor and a friend. And I wanted to bring Dr. Joe Ani to sort of have a conversation with him about the issues we find ourselves in. Money is a problem for most Americans. And I wanted Dr. Ani to help us to sort of figure out what we do next as we get to the end of 2023. How do we start 2024 on a better footing? So Dr. Ani, welcome to Forgiveness Live for August 12th of 2023. Could you share with us a little bit about who you are, where you live, your work, anything you want to share about your family? We want to bring you in. Tell us a little bit about Joe Ani.
Good afternoon, Ms. Megan. Thank you for this loud introduction. I think you already did it all. However, just to chip a little, to expand it, I know that Dr. Megan likes me to say something that I don't want to say. I always don't like to introduce myself. But permit me to briefly say that my name is Joe Ani, as rightly put on the chart on the presentation. And my area of specialty, especially with my PhD, is in global leadership and organizational management. In the concourse of what I do, hold on.
Go ahead.
In the concourse of what I do, I'm originally from Nigeria, but I spent most of my life here in US from California, then moved to Georgia in 98, and this is where I am, living in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Few blocks, if I use the word, from Megan Sanders. I own a small business, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an accountant by profession. I'm also a tax professional, payroll specialist, real estate broker, and mortgage lender. That's it. And that's why I start with introduction of who I am. I'm married with children, and I thank God for all those.
Thank you, Dr. Ani. I think our listeners will understand why we picked you. You have a whole wealth of information that you could share with us, given that we are struggling with almost all the areas of mortgage, accounting, everything that you've just mentioned is a problem for most of us. So thank you for joining us today. Let me get started with a quick question for you, Dr. Ani. You've come from Nigeria, you have an accounting degree, you have your doctoral degree, etc. But how did you get involved in this area? And why have you stayed so long in this sort of career vein? What got you started?
Well, when I got talking with you, my mind was set on being part of Forgive for Life for Health. So I didn't know you were talking about my career. Well, by God's grace, growing up, I was inclined to figures. And when I talk of figures, mathematically, God has blessed me with all those, and I felt like an area that I could play part is calculations. And everybody knows that when you talk of accounting, you're talking about figures. And with that, I broadened my career into other areas, because in accounting and in finance, you want to be able to saturate and be able to help in different areas. And that took me into other financial areas, dealing with housing, mortgages, real estate. And above all, people need to get paid. And I said, okay, payroll is important. And I provide payroll services to some of my clients. However, in getting to this and doing this, when I got to a point where I loved and I know God is good, it took me to an area of volunteerism. And I said, well, to volunteer is an access that God gives us, and he has given it to us to be able to provide sense of purpose to people in ourselves, provide sense of community belongingness and relationship. And as a volunteer, it helps you to meet new friends, increases social skills of people, of yourself in relationship with others. It also improves self-esteem, because when you're associating with people and you're budgeting yourself, you are also increasing your self-esteem. And what you do, how you do it, is what people see, and that's how they grade you. And also it teaches you valuable skills that you can use in other areas, even your home, your friends, your children, and as well it provides you job prospects, because you don't know where you're going to be, who you meet, and where it's going to be tomorrow. Because most of the things we do, how we grow, is by association. And it provides also, brings you into your real life. People can speak into you, and it can help you to be happier. We want to be happy, and above all, it gets you out of your comfort zone.
Thank you, Dr. Ani. Very interesting thoughts and comments. I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about financial literacy and budget management. Why do you think, as a Christian organization and for Christ followers, for anybody else listening to us, why is financial literacy and budget management important, Dr. Ani? What do you think?
Well, I'll throw the big question back to you. Do you like, do you love, do you engage, do you use money? I don't expect you to answer.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is, no matter the level of anybody's thinking, money is involved. Some people say money answers everything, but I say money doesn't answer everything. However, you use money to provide service, to help, and to do things and what that you need to do. So money is an important aspect of each person's life. Two, financial literacy on itself is the ability to understand and efficiently use various financial skills, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. Secondly, financial literacy is about managing all the financial resources, decisions you have to make each day, from budgeting to savings. If you don't have money, what are you going to be saving? If you don't use money, what are you going to be saving? If you don't make money, if you don't bring it in, how are you going to be satisfying your individual and family needs? So I believe that financial literacy and budgeting is important to Christ followers who are informed about finances. That is to say, Christians, followers of Christ, who are informed, well informed about finances, make good decisions and help with the church finance.
Thank you so much. So it sounds like, from what you've just said, all of us need to have some financial literacy, so we understand about our pay, how we spend, how we save, and even plan for retirement, etc. So it's very important for all of us to manage our budget and be financially literate. Thank you so much. Let's move on. We're going to dig into this conversation, Pastor Ani. I want to talk a little bit about the Bible. And many people sort of misquoting what the Bible says about money. The Bible says that the love of money, not money, but the love of money is the root of all evil. Help us to unpack this. What does it mean? As a pastor, as an accountant, is that quote correct? Why is the love of money the root of all evil? Tell us more.
This is a loaded question.
It is.
How do we start talking about it? Let me start effectively by asserting that this is one of the most mistaken and misquoted section of the Bible. The Bible did not say money is the root. It says money, the love. So let's distinguish between money as a category and love as a category. You love, then you use money to satisfy the needs. So the Bible specifically says the love of money. And so to deal with that, I will start by saying and by quoting 1 Timothy as it is rightly stated. It says, 1 Timothy 6:10 says, for the love of money, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people, carving money, have wandered from the truth and pierced themselves with many sorrows. Lust for money brings trouble and nothing but trouble. So it is the love of money. And that's why people kill people to get money. People use different kinds of methods to make money because of the love. Because of the love. To have money is good. God wants us to be rich. But how do we get to being rich? And when we're rich, how do we use it? What's the application? That's what the Bible is talking about, the love. Now, this verse, let me go deeply into this verse. The verse is often misquoted as saying money is the root of all evil. Notice how money is substituted for love, love of money, and the root of all evil. These are distinct, categorical statements and emphasis that needs to be distinguished and abrogated for its own purposes and for their use. Love of money, not money. So whatever you love has a life in your life, has a part in your life, can be the driving force to what you do. So when people love money, it drives them to whatever they do in order to get the money. So this is the love. Also, this misquoted version, money is the root of all evil, makes money and wealth the source. So it now takes us to the source, the root. The source is the root of all evil in the world. This is clearly false. The Bible makes it quite clear that sin is the root of all evil. So let's bridge the gap that sin is the root of all evil, not money, but the love of money. And this is found in Matthew chapter 15, and Matthew 15 to 19, as well as Romans verse 12, James verse 1 to 15. However, when we reflect upon the correct citation of this verse, we see that it is the love of money, not money itself, that is source of all different kinds of trouble and evil. Wealth is morally natural and neutral. There is nothing wrong with money in and of itself or the possession of money. However, when money begins to control us, that's when trouble starts. Now that I've said this, I want to delve a little bit. Let's consider the question before us. Why is the love of money a root of all kinds of evil? To help us answer the question, we must look at the passage in its greater exhortation. Timothy was very specific and direct. Paul, in exhorting Timothy regarding the need to teach and all these things to the congregation, he needs to teach them. So we need to teach our people, teach ourselves the difference between the love of money and money itself and what it accomplishes. Paul warns Timothy about false teachers who will seek to wrap and to warp and pervert the content of sound doctrine for their own greedy gain. And this is If you read down on 1 Timothy 6, 3 to 5, you will find that in that context. And going further, in the Sermon on the Mountain, Jesus said, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Matthew 6:24. This verse comes at the end of the passage in which Jesus tells us to lay up treasures in heaven. Here, Jesus likens a love of money to idolatry. So when we talk about this particular verse, we need to be exactly content and know exactly what it's saying. Love of money and not money, and not use of money.
Thank you, Pastor Dr. Ani. Interesting. And thank you for going deeper and also sharing some of those relevant Bible verses that documents why the root of money, not the love of money, is the root of all evil. Thank you so much. So let's go and talk a little bit about stewardship. We know that everything we have belongs to God. So talk to us about the importance of money and stewardship. If we are stewards of God's money, what should be our approach to this? If I don't own anything and you've given me something, what's the best approach for Christians as stewards?
Well, you don't own the money, I don't own the money. Money is transient. It comes, it goes. And none of us goes down deep, 6 feet below ground with the money. If you've seen anybody that's gone down deep 6 feet with the money, let me know. I can probably dig the ground and get the money back, because if it has not rusted. So money is transient and we cannot go home with it. As we live, we are trusted with God's money. So it's a trust that God has embedded in our lives, in us. God gave us the money that we might take care of it for him. So we are stewards, accountable to God for what he has given to us. Just like we're as an employee, the employer gives us assignment, and we are responsible for fulfilling the assignment and working on the assignment. So God has employed us by entrusting us with the money, and we become stewards accountable to God for what he has given us. So being stewards of God's money entails that everything we have belongs to God, not to us, but we use it to accomplish his purpose. So our time, our abilities, our resources, and our money belong to God. We are gifted with those, and we have to use it appropriately to honor God. Being God's stewards and being stewards of God's riches, according to 1 Timothy 6, 17 to 21. That's the content and context of that. Command those who are rich in this world's goods not to be haughty or to set their hope on riches. You can see somebody with money today, tomorrow, is walking on the street and living on the street. And we are required to handle the resources that God has given us. It doesn't have just to be money, but our talents. That talent can go anytime. We don't own ourselves because nobody's promised tomorrow. So that money that we have, we are accountable to that. Everything we have, we as children of God, we as stewards, we are accountable, and we have to keep track of it and report to God on how we use it. And that's why there will be accountability on the last day. And what have you done with the talents I've given to you? Money being part of it.
Thank you, Pastor. So let me ask you a sort of a deeper question about the stewardship issue. what do you then say to somebody who owns all this money and refuses to use it for good? It's just harboring it for themselves. I mean, what would be the word or the message you say to that person listening today? Because they've gone on the wrong path. What would you say to them?
That person doesn't hold his or her life. It can be taken any day. It can be called home any day. And that money is gone outside his or her control. So use it to satisfy God's need while satisfying your own need.
Thank you, sir. So let's talk a little bit deeper about the Bible. As you know, because you're a pastor, the Bible has over 800 verses about money.
Okay, hold it. It has over 2,300.
See, okay. Even the number I did research was wrong. More than about heaven and hell. Why do you believe that this is significant, Pastor?
Well, this is loaded again. It is significant in the sense that God emphasizes the use of the money, the application, the saturation of money in my life. Do I think the money owns me, or I own the money to use it? So God demands that we be accountable, that we use the resources He's given to us appropriately for the gospel to expand the ministry and to satisfy the needs of people that we can reach.
Thank you, sir. All right. So we've talked about the Bible, we've talked about Timothy and the money being the love of the root of all evil, etc. And we've dug in deep about stewardship. So let's come back to today. Why should somebody actually set a budget and try to manage their resources with a budget? Why should somebody develop a budget and try to stick to it? What are some of the reasons that you think that's important? Or what steps should they take? Let's talk a little bit about why it's important and what steps should they take.
Before I go into that, I also need to emphasize something that I did not say when I talked about God's money and why it is so multilateral when He says we have to use the money, that it is more than 23 mentions in the scriptures. God cares about us, and He cares about how we use the money and what we do with the money. God cares about our finances.
Thank you, Pastor, and I appreciate that, and I know He does. So thank you so much. So, and that's of course why we have so much verses in the Bible that sort of remind us of these principles and practices that we should actually follow. So thank you for that. All right, let's move back to the budget. What steps should I take if I want to develop a budget and stick to it? And why is that important, given that we are stewards of this money?
I'm going to be very succinct in that section of the question. A budget, first of all, is a plan of action. It's like, if you don't know where you're going, you won't know how to get there. So it's a plan of action that relates to finances. And when you want to be financially prudent, you have to have a budget. So listing can vary, but they are very elusive. So I will say this, that when it comes to budgeting, it's very direct and simple. First, you have to know what you have, what you're getting, and I call it, you have to know your income, your budget, the money that comes in, your paycheck. You may have multiple sources of income, but what is your paycheck like? how much money do you bring home for use? The total, whether you run a business, whether you're on W-2, whether you're on 1099, whichever means and sources of your income they are, bring them together and total them, and it becomes one figure. That's your income. Then you come to your expenses. You have to list all your expenses. What kind of expenses do you encounter? You have housing, you have transportation, you have clothing, you have utilities, you have the major one, the master that makes you live, the food. How much do you spend on each of these? Bring them together, that forms your expenses. You can do it on a monthly basis. It's not static. Budget is not static. You can review it every time and make changes, but you have to have your total expenses. Then the next one is you subtract your expenses from your income. That gives you a result, or what you can put in your savings. If your expenses exceed your income, we got a problem. And I don't want you to visit me. Because if you visit, I say I don't want you to visit me, because if you visit me, we're gonna have a problem. We have to talk. So your income should always be greater than your expenses. Cut your coat according to your size. Don't follow Mr. James because Mr. James is piloting and doing all this. You don't know his or her pocket. Your income should be greater than your expenses, even if it's by 1 penny. Then the next one is you have to track the transactions, how you're spending, which one is going where. You have to monitor that from time to time, and then make new budgets as things go on. So these are 5 steps. Know your income, know your expenses, subtract your expenses from your income to have a result, track your expenses, and review and make budget every time. And if you're on paycheck to paycheck, I would say make daily budget or weekly budget. So in that way, you don't exceed what your paycheck is coming in. And if you do it that way, I guarantee you that you're going to have some result, because you wouldn't like to exceed what you're making.
Thank you, Pastor, Dr. Ani. All right, so the importance of the budget and following those 5 steps, I think, is what you've just shared. And I think those are great principles for people to follow. And we know, however, it's hard to stick to that. And I don't know if you want to talk about why that may be, Pastor Ani. Why is it hard? You know, I've talked to people and they're like, I can't write this down. I'd prefer not to know. What do you say to people like that don't want to look at their budget? They, you know, it's like and so they end up with more months than money. What do you say to people? It's like they're burying their head in the sand when it comes to developing a budget.
Well, my definite response on that is, if somebody keeps doing something over and over and expect a different result, we call it insanity.
Yep.
So my advice, well, not advice, because for me to give you advice, you have to be my client. My suggestion would be, please, painstaking it, try it, do it. It's going to work. But if you keep saying, I can't do this, I can't write this, the brain, sometimes as we get younger, our brain keeps expanding. And because of the expansion of the brain, it keeps absorbing a lot. And because of the large absorption, something starts leaking out. And you can't grab back what's leaked out. So brain is good, but it's not going to contain everything. We tend to forget. Write it down, write it down, write it down.
Thank you, sir. One pivot to the issue of divorce. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we started the ministry because of my research in forgiveness and divorce. But one of the top topics or the top cause of divorce, at least the last time I looked at it, was was the issue of money. Why do you think that this is the case for us in America, given, there's so much divorce, including in the church? Why do you think this is the case?
Oh. Well, first of all, I put up a disclaimer. I do not support divorce, except in extreme cases when it threatens the life, or and when it comes to a point where the life of somebody is threatened, and where it becomes an issue that even if your life is not threatened, but it could end to depression and all this, weigh it out, talk to a counselor, and deal with it. And when the Lord directs you in that process, you take it up from there. However, there are several monetary relationships to divorce, and people say money is the major cause. Yes, absolutely. You make money, I make money. You want me to use my money to satisfy your needs? The answer in marriage sometimes is no, keep your money, I keep my money. However, that's not an ideal for couples. You make money decisions every single day. That decisions affects your relationship. When you deal with something in your marriage over and over, it stands to reason that you will have an increased chance of experiencing conflict over it. And money is something that is there, we deal with on a daily basis. And there's always going to be a conflict. That conflict can result into something because sometimes it's difficult to resolve it. So that's decisions. One affects the divorce when it comes to money. Two, you may not realize, people may not realize, but money fights feel personal intuitions. The fight is on. So when somebody criticizes your use of money, it feels very personal. We have husbands criticizing wives for how they use money. We have wives criticizing their husbands on how they use money. That's at a certain point, it becomes personal. And that's because of money. But if there's an agreement, if there's a budget, there's a latitude, and that helps. Also, the way we approach money is central to our character. That character is built in the way you approach money is part of your DNA. How you approach it is part of your DNA and central to your character. So any blaming or attacking about your use of money feels like you are being criticized for who you are, not just how you spend or save. The next one is the roles identified or ill-defined. So how do we rationalize? What is my role in money management in the house? So another reason is couples experience conflict when dealing with money and this lack of understanding. There needs to be a need to establish an understanding of money. From day one, there has to be an established understanding. This is how we're going to approach. These are things that couples deal with during their dating. And when they come in, they start to unfold. I always tell people that marriage is an envelope that you don't know exactly what is inside it. You have two people from different upbringing with different ideologies. So when they come together, they begin to unfold the innate being in them. And that's when they begin to find the actual differences. And this goes down to reflect in money. Somebody may be extravagant from a family. The other person may be deal down this. Let's deal to the nitty-gritty. So that affects the marriage. So, and when the cycle continues to repeat itself, it ends the way originally couples never intended for it to end.
Thank you. So it sounds like the issue is multifactorial in the sense that it's not only the fight for money, but it's the fact that you're bringing in these principles and the practice and the policies and the way you approach money into the marriage. I like what you said about marriage being a closed envelope, and then you're opening it, and then you're seeing what's in there. And the fact that once you fight about money, it's like you're being attacked personally. It's not really just, you just went out and bought a flat screen TV for $1,500 and you didn't ask me anything. It's more like you feel like you're personally attacked. So I can see over time how that can lead to marriage discord and eventually to divorce. So thank you so much for so eloquently sharing that with us. There is, as you know, another issue with regard to monies in family is the children digging into parents' pocketbooks and their purses. So I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about that, Pastor Oni. How do we keep adult children out of our purses and pocketbooks? Because you know that this, as Gen Xers and millennials, it's almost like commonplace. Many of them have come home back to parents. And no grandparents are raising children and grandchildren in the home, and then they're supporting their children. How do we stop that? Because that's a common issue here in the US.
First of all, parents should be an open book to their children. When parents start hiding things, especially how they make money, what happens with their money, they're opening a room for the children to start to find out, to discover. And it's this discovery that leads children, when they see this money, they'll take it. But if children understand, if they are taught, I'm going to use the word taught, the use of money, the application of money, how the parents worked hard to get this, and then it's embedded inside the family meetings, it's going to change. But when we hide and stroll, children want to know where the money is. And at that point, when they find it, they'll take it. And when it becomes part of the children as they grow, it becomes part of them, and they'll flee out with them. And it's going to extend not just in the home, but outside. So make the children part of the money management in the family from day one, when they can understand money, and let them be part of it. And as they grow, they will not go into that. This is a general statement, but there are also specifics. Children, due to peer pressure, can also force themselves into that. When they go to school, they see their friends spending money here and there, and you don't know what they discuss with those children. So home is the beginning of the money management with the children. When it's enforced, I'm going to say enforced from beginning, and let them know the character, the patterned ideology of the family. Children will follow. And when it is brought in through Christ, it makes a lot of difference.
Thank you, sir. So let's say you're a parent who've done all of that, but you have kids still in your pocketbook. What do? You have taught them how to manage money. You have shown them the principles and brought them to the Bible. But you still find that they're always sending or asking for money. What does a parent do, especially as they're approaching retirement?
Who are their friends?
Is that the friend of the parent or the friend of the
friends? The friends of the children, where they mingle. What kind of associations are there? Sometimes it may be tough, it may be difficult, but parents can get to know the friends that they mix up with and the families that they mix up with. I cannot categorically state here that it won't happen. It's going to continue to be a problem. But there is power in prayers. And what woman cannot do, God can do it, and God can help. So after you've done all you need to do, Maybe you need to start keeping your stuff away into a safe place. But at the end of the day, when the parents are not there, that's theirs. So it's a tough question, and I will resort to prayers.
Thank you. I understand completely. Thank you, Pastor Ani. I'm sure lots of people had that question. So let's go back. You mentioned that in family meetings, etc. How soon do you think we should start training children about money, and why?
There are different stages that you can do this. I'm trying to figure out which of them is a more subtle way. Well, let me pivot a little bit.
Do we teach them? I mean, and maybe let me say this, because for my kids, they were in elementary school when they started having these saving accounts, and they would come to the school. I remember years ago, because now my youngest is 24, that in elementary school they would have these banking days, and I'm teaching my kids about the importance of money. I would give them money to go to put in their banking accounts at the school. And then when they leave, they would get their little accounts. And I remember one had something at Chase, if my memory serves me right. I'm getting old. But I mean, is elementary school early enough? I mean, because what we're trying to do, I think, if I can think about it this way long term, is we're trying to get them so financially savvy that they don't end up with the $37,000 in student loan debt. They don't end up in divorce because of money, because I think the principles that we put in them, Dr. Ani, and I think you will agree with me, are what is going to keep them into their adult life. So, the question is, do we start in elementary school? Do we start at pre-K when they understand, but, a dollar means it's 10 cents, 10 cents, or whatever. Yeah, but I'm not making any sense.
I understand your question. I was trying to think through on how to direct it so it can be specific, age specifics. I will state kids between the ages of 6 to 8 may start to understand how money works. Okay. So at that level, as soon as the child is receiving maybe some allowance, there should be a place for the child to start saving money, putting money away, even if it is 1 cent. Teach the child that he or she received this $10. Please do not spend the entire $10. They will still begin to understand money, and that's teaching them savings. Between the ages of 9 and 12 is a good time to get kids thinking about the value of money. There's a difference between use of money and value of money. One way to do that is by comparison shopping. You take them shop, they shop this, they buy this, they buy this, they buy this. Compare what are the prices here and there. Let them begin to understand the value of money. When kids hit the teen years, we really need to start teaching them to budget. Between lunch money, school supplies, and other small purchases, let them begin to budget. Teach them to give to charity as well, the church. So they should not neglect these days of small beginning. Even though some, when they grow up, they forget God, they say there's no God, but the pertinent and foundation laid do not really depart from them. They may go to test the world, but they're going to come back. So start from, I would say 6 years becomes a starting point, because you're going to give them allowance. They want to clean the house, you give them $1, $5, let them teach them how to save some of them. But that they may not understand the value, but when they turn 9, they need to understand the value of money.
Thank you, sir. Some really good perspectives about, the teaching them how to save and teaching the value of money, etc. So thank you so much for that. So I think all of us, if we're thinking about this, Dr. Arnie, can think about people we know that have made a lot of money but wasted it in their lives, and they're now living like paycheck to paycheck. What should somebody who finds themselves in that situation do now as they're getting, especially if they're getting close to retirement? What do they do given that they've wasted the money? There's no way you can get it back. What do you do as you're looking at a retirement, you're in your 60s, and all the money is gone? What do you do when you find yourself in such a situation?
I would say I would suggest look at senior housing, the benefits of things that the government provides. Talk to your family members, see what you have, what you can sell, and how you can generate funding. Because at that point, you may not be able to get back to work. But if you can get back to work to raise some fund. So that would be my take on that.
Thank you. So getting back, maybe, although you're retired or close to retired, finding a way to generate more money so you can sort of put in some things back. And it sounded like you're suggesting things like government housing, because if you have no money, you'll have to find ways to sort of use some of those resources. Thank you so much. We're in the middle of a recession, is what we often hear. But what does that mean? Also, what should people with more money than money do during this time? We are in the middle of a recession. Is that true? What does that mean? And then the other piece is, what do we do?
Okay. I'm going to quote a statement. According to the Bureau, a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that is widespread and lasts several months. Typically, that means not only shrinking GDP, that's gross domestic product, but declining incomes, employment, industrial production, and retail sales. Those things begin to slow down. That's a point where we are, and we're approaching or moving into recession. So now those who have money, or let me back up. So the question is, how is recession determined? The official metrics used to determine a recession include negative gross domestic product, increased unemployment, a decline in retail sales, a slowdown in manufacturing, and diminishing income. When a nation's economy begins to experience these events simultaneously over an extended period of time, there is good chance it is a recession.
Thank you, sir.
So the second question he asks is, what do those who have money do with their money? I would say continue to invest, continue to save, continue to spend, because sometimes this thing is going to come back. Don't stop budgeting, don't stop savings, don't stop spending and investing.
Thank you so much. All well said, and thank you for sharing what a recession means, because sometimes we say the words, but we don't understand what it means. Thank you so much. I want to say, so having heard all of that, we've talked about children, we've talked about the church, we've talked about the Bible. So I made a bad financial decision. And I listen to all of what you've just shared, that I didn't do the right thing. The issue of forgiveness is a very big issue in this space, because as you look at people around you and you realize that you've wasted your money, or if you lost your money in the stock market, and you've made major decisions that have backfired on you, how do you think somebody like that forgives themselves? Or is that important for them to sort of forgive themselves to move on? What are your thoughts around the issue of forgiveness and money? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Forgiveness. The Bible says the last enemy that will be destroyed is unforgiveness. There are different things you can do. First of all, you have to trace back, how did I get here? Analyze it, process it. What can I do to make changes to why I'm here? And then what can I do moving forward? If I sit down, continue to dwell on my past, I will not move forward. What I always suggest is when it gets to that point, I've looked at the mistakes I made. Those mistakes, I can't bring them back. They are history. I don't want to dwell on that. What processes can I put in place not to make those mistakes moving forward? That becomes my priority. Having thought of those, I should let go, forgive myself, and begin a new chapter in my life, knowing things that I have done and things that I can do to improve and change, and then forgive myself and move forward.
Thank you. I think that's important, knowing that we know that God forgives us, and we come and ask for his help. So thank you so much. Yeah, I think that many people that I meet struggle with making those mistakes earlier in their lives, and especially if they're perfectionists. When they look at their bank account and there's so much there's minuses there instead of the pluses and less zeros. They're like, how do I forgive myself for this mistake? So I'm happy to hear what your thoughts are on that. Thank you so much. I want to go into a more controversial topic than even before, the issue of tithing, Pastor Ani. There's no way we're going to have this session today without talking about this. So let's discuss this controversial topic of tithing. Many believe that this is an outdated practice, but from your perspective, should we all continue to tithe in the 21st century? What are your thoughts?
Who makes the sanctuary? And who is the owner of the sanctuary?
God.
Centuries come, it's all about dates. As we progress, people by context assign numbers to aging, and we call it century. The Bible is the same. The scriptures and God's word has not changed and will not change. The fact that the centuries are changing and things are happening, and what did not happen yesterday has happened today, has not changed the metaphor of God. So tithing is an institution which was instituted by God. And Proverbs 3:9-10 says, honor the Lord with your wealth, then your barns will be filled to overflowing. You know, it is good to have barns, but it is better to have them filled to the top. So every time you give, tithe and sow, present your tithe to the Lord with honor. That is the heart with which we increase. That is the heart with which we tithe. It is a mandate. 2, the tithe is the first 10%. Be sure to set aside 1/10 of all that your field produces each year. This is Deuteronomy 14:22. The tithe belongs to God. Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Matthew 22:21. We present our tithes to Jesus. Here mortal men receive tithes, but there Jesus, receives them, of whom it is witnessed that he lives. Hebrews 7:8. We give our tithes in faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. Hebrews 11:6. We tithe using our words. Take some of the first fruits and say to the priest, Deuteronomy 26:22-3. Tithing protects the other 90%. Let me say it loud. Tithing protects the other 90%. I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Malachi 3:11. Tithing is the only area God says, prove me. Try it, let me prove it to you. Malachi 3:10. Tithing is our covenant connection. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen, they have lied, they have put them with their own possession. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. Joshua 7:11-12. God created the tithe for our benefit. Honor the Lord with your substance, so shall your barns be filled with plenty. Proverbs 3:9-10. Tithing opens the door to blessings. Then you shall rejoice in all the good things the Lord your God has given to you and your household. Deuteronomy 26:11. Tithing is of God. God ordained it, and it will stay forever. People who don't tithe have problems. Let me share a testimony before you ask me the question. There was a time, I'm a tither. Let me just say it.
That was another question I had for you, but go ahead.
I'm a tither, and I believe in tithing. And I've been tithing since I knew Christ back in 1971. And I'm not going to back down, no matter what anybody teaches. There was a time my wife was in school, my children were in school, all of us, and I was in school doing my PhD. There was no money. I was doing my little business. And rather than pay my tithe in full, I paid half, I used half. And things were going down. One day I said, oh, my wife didn't know, because she knows I'm going to be in trouble. She is a grade 1 tither. She doesn't joke with it. I said, God help me here. Rather than use, I started paying in full and more. All of a sudden, blessings started to flow, and God made a way where there no way. So tithing is great. Tithing makes the way, and God is honored when we tithe. Let's not lean on false teachings that is things of the Old and this Old Testament. That's not factual.
Thank you so much. So yeah, one of the questions I wanted to know is, are you a tither? And do you have any miraculous story? And I'm sure we could all trade story about how God showed up for us as tithers. And yes, many people who feel like it's a waste of money. I know I've gone to the bank, for instance, and they wanted me to give them an explanation. When I went for my last mortgage, of where does this money go every single week? And I had to write to the bank. I still have it in writing, what I do with that money, because they want to know when they're looking through your credit and all that. But God is God, and I'm glad he's faithful. So thank you, Pastor Oni, for that.
Let me also add, it came to a point where I was audited by IRS. I'm an accountant, I'm a tax professional, but they saw the money donations on my tax return, and they sent me that ugly letter.
Yes.
I got it, I looked at it, I just laughed. I went to my drawer, pulled all the giving statements, sent it to them, 2004 till today. I never heard back from them. So I will also say that tithing is giving to God what belongs to him. The first, and in my opinion, most important reason why I should tithe is that I'll be giving back to God what belongs to him. In these verses that we looked at, Malachi, God tells his people that they have robbed him of tithes and offering. I don't want to rob God. And anybody abetting from tithing, hold on to Malachi 3:10.
Thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful verse around the importance of tithing. So thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit more about banking. We know that interest rates and predatory lending is on the rise. I mean, right now in America, to get into a home, for instance, we talk about 7-8% for most people. What advice do you have for people who might find themselves going to predatory lenders to get money? I mean, earlier in my life in this country, I had something that I noticed every Friday. I worked in a nursing home 100 years ago. And it seemed like almost on target or on time, my staff would disappear and I would know where they were. So I'd go looking for them and they were all gone. And I'm like, so I stopped one of them one Friday and I said, where do you all go? They said, oh, we go to the money truck. And I'm like, what is a money truck? Because in Jamaica, in my lifetime as a child, we learning early to go to the credit union or the building society to save. To find this very massive amount of people in this America, where I worked here in Georgia, that had to go to a money truck. And so when I started to investigate, they indicated to me, well, we can't have bank accounts. So a lot of these people are caught up, Ms. Dr. Ani, in predatory lending. If they need $2, they have to pawn a car or something. What do we do as a people? Because it's obviously affecting a lot of minorities, especially African Americans. What do you say to them? Going to find something now for a car, maybe 10. I had one woman that was a 22% loan for a little car that wasn't likely to last a year. What do we do as a people in situations like this? And then I want us to go into blanking while black. I'm going to go there today. So let's talk first about the predatory lending and these high interest rates. Do we buy homes, for instance? Is it the right time?
Thank you, Dr. Meg. Predatory lending, we need to understand what it is first.
Yeah.
And predatory lending typically means imposing unfair, deceptive, or abusive lending practices and imposing unfair practices on borrowers. It's unworthy, it's ridiculous, it's undeserving, and it shouldn't be happening. And it's highly regulated. That's one. If a lender tries to rush you through the approval process, doesn't answer your questions, or suggests you borrow more money than you can afford, you should be worried about that. Think twice. Let your questions be totally answered before you sign the dotted line. A lender should provide you with the right of rescission. And what it simply means, you have the right to turn down a loan even after you signed the paperwork. With most loans, you have 3 days to make up your decision, your mind, after you've signed the documents. If a lender doesn't give you that provision, think twice. If you suspect you are a victim of predatory lending, don't wait, contact an attorney. Take action to keep your money and your sanity safe from predatory lending.
Thank you. So
I'm not going to give advice on that because it's more of a legal question.
Yes. Yes.
If I'm working with you as a client on any loan and thing, I can specifically address specific, but if you have issues, anything related to lending, because it is highly regulated by authorities, seek advice from an attorney.
Thank you, Dr. Ani. So we've just talked about predatory lending, and I mentioned the observation of my staff just disappearing at this, for this cash truck and being charged just to cash their own paychecks. For me, that makes no sense because I grew up going to the bank. But we have bigger issues that it relates to banking in America. Banking while black is still a problem in the US. I mean, you can look online every day and people being treated differently. Going to pay off a mortgage and you're treated like, or a loan, and you're treated like a mere criminal. What, in your opinion, can we do to sort of help to mitigate this as we go into the banks to do business with them in this economy that we're finding ourselves in? What do we do as African Americans or other minorities who might find themselves faced with this?
This is a contentious question. It's not elusive, it's ongoing, and it's something that needs to be addressed. However, my view is, if you think you've been discriminated against, you may need to seek legal advice, and that's where I will stop.
Okay. So you go into the bank to pay off a loan or to apply for a loan, because that happens at both ends, and you feel like you're not given a sort of a thorough shake. Immediately you go in and you're Black, I have a name that's not Black, right? I can say that. And I've actually had the experience of going to meet people and they're like looking behind me, looking for this Megan, because my name doesn't tell anybody what my color is. It's a British name. So, but you go in and you feel like you're being treated differently. Is it what you're suggesting, that these people go in and get some legal advice?
Get a legal advice.
Okay. Because
whatever you do or say can be turned against you.
Okay.
And you can't, and then lawsuits can be filed for false accusation.
Okay.
And
so
you don't want to get into that.
Yeah. So you're going to pay off a loan. You're already in the bank. And you're still treated differently, because I think most people know this, but maybe I need to say this. You have a mortgage and you decide you want to pay it off early. The bank, of course, is disappointed because they're looking for it to be 30 years or 15 years or whatever you sign. And everybody but God is called in. Okay. When you go to pay
hold it there.
What do you do?
When you get to that point, go back and read the content of your loan application and what you signed. Be sure that what you're trying to do is within the context of what you signed. Because if you signed a document that states you cannot pay off this loan in less than XYZ, and you go to pay it, try to pay it, it may not work. It's not gonna happen. Otherwise, they will make you to pay XYZ interest additional to that. So when it gets to the documentation and you want to do something that has to do with lending up, look, and you've signed a document, read through the dotted line before you proceed on anything you want to do. Because that's the guide. That's what you said. This is what I'm going to do. When you take the loan, you say, this is what I'm going to do. And now you want to do something different. It is not discrimination. It is legal, it is right, it's absolute. So you have a choice. Pay whatever additional they want you to pay because you're trying to pay it off before the time that you agreed on. So that's what it is. But anything outside that, and you've read through it and it's not working, that's a problem. And one area that you can go freely and don't have to struggle with it is credit unions. Credit unions are more lenient. You can close on a loan today and you can pay it off tomorrow.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the difference between a bank and a credit union, and why, I have 2 credit union accounts and I wouldn't change them for the world. But what, for people who don't understand, could you talk a little bit about the difference between a credit union and a bank?
I'm not a banker.
Yeah, but tell us.
The one primary difference is ownership. You are a stake owner. You are part owner in a credit union. In the bank, you don't. So that's one outstanding difference. If I belong to a credit union, I'm one of the owners. In a bank. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
I don't know why the screen just changed. Did I do that?
It did. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Did I do this?
No, you did not, Pastor Ani. We're getting ready to wrap up. So go ahead.
So ownership is the primary thing, the primary difference. So you have a stake in what you own, but you don't have a stake in what you don't own.
Okay. So the bank is not.
So credit, is ownership, membership.
Yeah.
Banks are not.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Ani. As we get ready to wrap up this piece, because we do have a few quick announcements at the end, do you have any final thoughts or summary of sort of key takeaway points that you'd like to share with our listeners today? We're still going live on Facebook. Any other thoughts that you want? So what are the key takeaway or some tips that you would like to give to our listener today about this topic of money, stress, and forgiveness?
Thank you, audience, for listening. And my final thoughts on this money issues is don't allow money to stress you out. There's an emotional obligation that's associated with money. And if it gets into your system as a stressor, that becomes a major health issue. Secondly, live within your means. Don't live like John. You don't know how far John has come and what John has got done to be where he or she is. Live within your means. Don't try to be Mr. X or Mr. Y. I just said, cut your coats according to your size. Take budgeting very seriously. And don't spend what you don't have. Don't live on credit cards. If you have to charge it, be sure you have the money. When it comes, pay it off. You're still improving your credit, but don't live on credit cards. That's not good. I'm talking to myself too when I say don't live on credit cards. So I'm not immune from that. Anytime you make a charge, be sure that you have the money to pay it off when the bill comes. Honor God with what you have. He is the source of your supply, of our supply. Commit all your needs to God because He knows the way through the wilderness. We all go through the wilderness. He knows the way through the wilderness. And above all, be open for consultation. Ask questions. Talk to people. Be confident, be comfortable. Talk to people. The problem is that we tend to have it for ourselves. I don't know what he's going to say, how he's going to look at it. Be open. Have somebody you can confide in and talk to the person. And God will be glorified in all we do. Thank you, Dr. Megan, for allowing me to share my thoughts today, and you'll be blessed. And thank you, audience, for listening, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Ani. Great. I mean, this is so exciting. So happy to have had you here. We do have some announcements. I do have one question that has come in by text. Dr. Ani, if you have the opportunity to pay off a mortgage and you are allowed by the bank, because you mentioned that people need to read that fine print, it's allowable that you can pay off a 30-year mortgage early. Should you do it? That's the question.
It's a yes and no question.
Okay. How so?
It's a yes if it gives, it makes provision for me to be able to apply whatever I was using for the mortgage to take care of other things. It's a no if I don't have any other credit card that will be helping to improve my credit. Because if you don't have anything being reported on your credit, two things could happen. At a certain point, your credit could be frozen and your credit will be dormant and you'll be going down.
Okay. And what if you're old and don't care? You're 65 or 67 and there's absolutely no credit that I'm going to be looking for. I actually want to freeze it. And this wasn't the question that came in, but should you do it? And so I wanted, but what if you don't care at this point?
I wouldn't think twice. I'll do it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ani. That's interesting. Thank you so much. I hope that answered the question. I'm just checking to see if I have anything else. I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Ani, for your time today, and all of the knowledge, including from the Bible that you shared with us. I really think and hope that people who listened will have learned something and will be blessed by what you have shared, and that they can implement some of those practices. I did have, like you did, a call to action, and I think you've covered some of this already, but we are all stewards, so nothing we have really belong to us is one of the things we have here. And then we want people to be encouraged to implement the tips for sound financial management that we've talked about in this session. I've also encouraged people to pray daily for their family and for their wisdom about how to manage money. If it's going to be the root of all evil and people are going to be getting into divorce because of it, we have to continually pray over that. And then especially for children, we want to model a life we want our children to lead, because you are the book they're reading. So if you are a poor money manager, you can be guaranteed that unless God intervenes or they get some other wisdom, your children are going to be poor money managers. We want to encourage people to work to improve their credit score. Pastor Ani just mentioned that when paying off loans. Make a plan to spend mindfully. We go out sometimes, we get caught up into the moment and forget that we don't have the money for this. So we buy a dress or a new TV when you have 10 TVs in your home. And so we need to be mindful about what we're doing. We need to work to reduce our debt. And we will all make money mistakes. Some of us make a decision about investing in something and it backfires on us. So we encourage you to forgive yourself and move on. And most importantly, surrender everything and everybody daily to God, including your money, and learn to forgive. So thank you. I do have a few quick announcements before we wrap this up today. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we do have RT and forgiveness every Friday night at 7:30. It's for adults over 18, and it's a really interesting way to look at the Bible and to sort of talk about everyday things around money, relationships, workplace issues, everything that you can think of we do at RT and forgiveness. And registration is open on Eventbrite, so go ahead and register. We'd love to have you. We talked a little bit about our RT and Forgiveness Juniors. Again, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock with anybody under 14 years of age. We've had kids all the way from the UK join us. And we spend time looking in God's word, drawing and painting, discussing relevant topic and having fun videos and music, etc. The registration is also on Eventbrite. We have RT and DEIAB, which is workplace implemented, something we implement in workplaces and businesses and conferences. Last week, I was in Houston and did a session at the conference. But we really allow people in this session to measure their happiness at work, their mental health and other stressors. And we help people with tools to sort of help them navigate the issues that they might be dealing with at work. So many people, for instance, will get into unforgiveness issues with their bosses. And unlike your home, you still have to deal with your boss. You know, you could tell your husband he has to sleep in the sofa, but you can't say that to your boss. So at RT and DEIAB, we talk about how you manage some of those stressors. And we can come to you or do it virtually. And we work with people, groups small as 4 or even 100 each session. You can email us at forgive4health@gmail.com to set up an appointment for your workplace. We'd love to work with you. We have forgiveness boot camps or workshop and forgiveness at work. Of course, as I mentioned, work is a perfect breeding ground for unforgiveness. If 2 or 3 people are together, there could be issues that you disagree on something, and the next thing you know, you're in this cycle of unforgiveness. And it can reduce morale, as I said at the top of the hour, and it can affect your family, because most of you know we go to work, we come home, you're angry, and your children are like, what's going on with mom? What's going on with dad? Because we don't separate pieces of our lives. We go into work with issues from home, and we come home with issues from work. So we do offer these workshops. So again, we'd love to come to you. We can help you with any of that. We have our RT and Forgiveness implementation guide about to hit the bookstores. They'll be available on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. This is it's chock full of €1 programming for you to use to implement RT and Forgiveness Circle anywhere you live. So whether you're in Nigeria, Jamaica, London, you can purchase this and use it. It has 1 year of programming for you, and it's going to be $150 once it hit the press print. We have a monthly prayer call every 4th Saturday where we pray for you. So if you can't join us, you can always email your prayer request to forgiveforhealth@gmail.com, or just leave a message at 404-294-4072, which is our ministry number. Our upcoming conference is set for September 16th. It's our 6th annual Forgiveness, Population Health, and Equity Conference, where we'll have some dynamic speakers, from seminary leaders to pastors to accountants like Dr. Ani, who is going to come to teach God's people about how to manage the issues of forgiveness, population health, and equity, how to manage their diabetes, how to manage chronic conditions, how to manage money, and how to deal with the trauma that we have all dealt with. We also have a very important session that's going to look at forgiveness in the health system. You know, you might have been mistreated in the health system. You might have I had an incident recently last year where somebody died for going to do a colonoscopy. How do we forgive when we find ourselves in this situation? So the conference is chock full of some of that content. We'd love to have you. We suggest a $35 donation, but you could send $100 and join us. We'd love to take that. We have another event on the 21st, which is a World Day of Peace. We'll have our World Day of Peace celebration that will start at 11:30 and run until 1, where we will celebrate peace and look at the ending racism and building peace, which is the World United Nations World Day of Peace theme for 2023. So we'll have a brief session, which will also run on forgiveness on Facebook Live and on YouTube. So we look forward to your participation. Last but not least, we are a 501c3 organization. So we exist only on donations. So we feel free to donate if you feel so inclined. You can donate on our website using Clover, Cash App, etc. Or you could go to our website and click donate to support our work. I want to thank each of you for your time today, and we hope that this was very relevant for you and that you learned something from this session. We thank you for your time and attention, and we wish you well. Have a good weekend, and thanks for all you do. Most importantly, Dr. Ani, thank you for taking this time, this 90 minutes of your schedule, because you're a very, very busy man, to join us today. We could not have done this without you, and we know that the success of today's event was because of your knowledge. So we thank you in advance, and we love and appreciate you, Pastor Ani. Have a good weekend, and thanks for all you do. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Ani. Thank you so much.